Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the End of the Week, an international relations and national defense news review podcast. As always, super excited to be here along with you as we talk about the stories that I've been tracking for the last week. So buckle up, NATSEC nerds. We are here to talk about some interesting stuff. It is I, your good friend, Morgan Houston, aka Whiskey Mo, the internet's least famous academic. I am a scholar of national defense policy, irregular warfare. The list continues to grow. It's good to be back. I was out last week doing some really cool things. I hope you watched the little blurb, the little 2-minute thing that I posted. But I wanted to talk about that before we get into this week's stories. I spent the last week, the majority of Memorial Day week, the last week of May 2026 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, to celebrate a young mentee of mine's graduation from the United States Air Force Academy. Now, for those of you who don't know, the United States has 4 service academies. We have the Naval Academy, the U.S. Military Academy, also known as West Point or Army, the Air Force Academy, and the Coast Guard Academy. These are all 4-year schools that commission officers across the DoD. Generally speaking, when you go to one of the branches service academies, that's when you're going to go to. However, there are cross-commissioning opportunities, or in some cases like the Air Force Academy and the Naval Academy, you can go to the sub-branch. So like the Air Force Academy will graduate cadets in Space Force. The Naval Academy will graduate cadets into the USMC. I was just blown away by my week at the Air Force Academy, spending time with the class of 2026 with Cadet Squadron 30, getting to know a few of the young cadets and now new officers, and listening to the speeches as I was sitting in Falcon Stadium and listening to the superintendent, the commandant of the cadets, the vice president talk about the historic achievements of the 930 plus young men and women who made up the class of 2026. Historic GPAs, historic changing of training programs to make them more realistic in the current world that we are operating in. The vice president actually hired one of the cadets out of the crowd for an internship, which was really cool. It was a phenomenal speech that the vice president gave. But I'm just blown away by the ability and capabilities of our young people in America today. I see it every day as someone who works in higher ed, but these special few who decide to raise their right hand and to sacrifice a good chunk of their life to the service of this nation. And in some cases, other nations, there were, I believe, like 10 or 15 cadets who were graduating, who were going to serve in partner forces across the globe. And I think that's spectacular. I think it is something that is commendable, and it's something that we should uphold, and that we should really make sure that we tell our young people thank you for the service that they have committed to. So to the U.S. Air Force Academy class of 2026, Cadet Squadron 30, and specifically now Second Lieutenant Ian Kim, I want to say congratulations. Super proud of you. I hope that you go on and do all the great things that I know that you can do. And with that, I will tell you, Hoo-yah team, never quit. Now on to our stories. We've got 3-ish stories that I would like to talk about. One involves NATO, and then there's 2 interconnected stories about counterterrorism and intelligence hirings within the administration that are difficult for me to talk about in an unbiased place. So I'm going to kind of put that aside when we get there. I'm going to be honest and what I think is going to come out. But first, let's talk about the first story that I wanted to talk about. Over last weekend, the United Kingdom and France, it was mostly a French-led operation with support from the United Kingdom, stopped and boarded some Russian oil tankers as they were false flagged, as they were attempting to subvert sanctions regimes that were placed against them in response to the multiple invasions of Ukraine. And I find this really, really fascinating because I'm going to post a link to a YouTube in the thing below. Um, there's some really dramatic footage of uh, French forces boarding and taking control of this oil tanker that was sailing under a non-Russian flag that was part of what they call the Russian Shadow Fleet, and it was in conjunction with British intelligence operations and all kinds of great collaboration between two of America's really most important defense partners, and to see them operate sans U.S. support is really impressive. And let me tell you why I think this is really important. We currently live in a space where relations with the rest of NATO and the United States is really on edge, where there seems to be the current administration is continuing to try and pull back and not engage with NATO. The administration is calling them freeloaders that they've just ridden on the backs of the U.S. taxpayer for years, that they don't help with our current administration or current operations, even though the United States never tells them about it beforehand. But one of the good positive things that has come out of both the first and second Trump administration is that it has forced our NATO allies to actually take a look at their own defense and to ramp up their spending, ramp up their preparedness, ramp up their recruiting. And we're seeing this with the Germans as they are expanding their force, they're expanding their defense spend. They are now forward deploying troops into countries that are not Germany for the first time since World War II. We are now seeing collaboration between Brits and France with nuclear sharing. Same thing with Germany, in the fact that they're not seeking to obtain nuclear weapons, but to be a platform to dispense nuclear weapons if necessary. But this operation to seize and control the Shadow Fleet from Russia, trying to subvert the sanctions that have been placed on them, I think is really encouraging, because it shows that NATO is taking the current worldscape seriously, and that despite what the current U.S. administration is saying, that they are taking their own national defense and world security very seriously. I think that this is an inflection point for NATO, in the fact that I think that NATO's role within the world is going to change. I don't think it's going to be a purely defensive alliance anymore. I believe that there's room for change and for the opportunity for NATO to become a good force for good, as it has been within parts of Eastern Europe and other parts of the world. So we're going to see, I think, a sea change in the way that our NATO partners are looking at the world and looking at their own national security as well as the security of the alliance. So I would say keep your eyes open for what's going to happen. I'll post the video from DW News on this. It's a really good watch. I think it's really important. I think it's good to see our allies just expanding their capabilities and then flexing it in a way that is beneficial to the world at large. And despite what the administration may believe or say, I do believe that this is beneficial for the U.S. as well. Now to our two interconnected stories. There was one story that was reported that I saw in The Guardian, that was about a low-level hiring within the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. And then as I'm sure most of you who watch this have seen, the new acting Director of National Intelligence. I posted a TikTok recently on the new acting DNI, Bill Pulte, and it is disturbing, to say the least, that this man has been elevated to such a role. He has, as far as anyone can tell, no experience within the intelligence community. He has no clearance of any kind. There does not seem to be anything that qualifies him for this role other than the fact that he is loyal to the current president. And that's problematic. His most recent role as the housing secretary has been used to attack the president's political opponents, making claims of like mortgage fraud against people like the current Senate Minority Leader, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York. And it's concerning to see what this could be. There is a really good quote from one of the articles that I read, and it's chilling to think about how he might use his power as the director of national intelligence, a job that will give him access to sensitive secrets about Americans and foreigners alike. His appointment is a threat to the effective functioning of the intelligence community, national security, and the rule of law. And I couldn't agree with this more, because we've already seen this person's willingness to attack people purely on the president's say-so, or not even on the president's say-so, because he perceives that the president would like this. And as the director of national intelligence, if he gets all of the background clearances that he's supposed to, a top secret SCI clearance, like, he's supposed to be able to access any and all intelligence products that have been created by the intelligence community. And this will give him untold amount of access that could be used to create real harm for people who have opposed the current administration. And despite what the current administration does believe, there is nothing wrong with being an opponent of an administration. There is honor in being a loyal opposition. And part of the reason that America is the country it is because that we do protect speech, even speech that we dislike. And so I'm very concerned about this. Now, there was an article that came out yesterday that President Trump is saying that this will not be a permanent. This will not be made permanent, that he is only going to be acting until someone else can be appointed. However, I think if we can look at history, very recent history, the first administration, the time that most of the time Trump was using acting secretaries so he could avoid any kind of confirmation hearing. And this, I think, has led to some real negative outcomes within the national security space and the National Security Council. So this is one thing to watch. I'm interested to see who the president will nominate for a more permanent position, because we still have 2.5 years before this administration will come to an end. And they claim that national security is a massive issue, but I do believe that they are continuing to show a level of unseriousness that puts American lives at risk. And continuing in that thread, there was a recent hire in the SOLIC, which is, again, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. And what makes this so disturbing is this man, Elias Irizarry, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. This is someone who on January 6, 2021 was a student at the Citadel. I am loath to call them cadets because they are not service academy cadets. They are only going to a civilian military college. But he was serving as a cadet in the Citadel. He wasn't serving, he was attending school at the Citadel, and decided on January 6th that he was going to storm the Capitol. He currently is a convicted felon for his actions on January 6th. And he has now been appointed to work within an office that has highly classified information that informs the policy and decision of our special operators and unconventional warfare, irregular warfare actions. And he has no qualifications. He's a graduate, yes, of the Citadel, but there's no qualifications whatsoever for him to be in this office. And it's just continuing to show that the current national security platforms that are being used are being used to uplift people who are purely loyalists to the president. And I will always have disagreements with people who either have a different political bend than me, or even within the same political agreement, there's going to be things like we're going to disagree on policy. That's just the way it works. But when you put someone who has either no policy experience or no education to bolster his policy making decisions into an important office that makes some of our most important defense-based decisions purely on the loyalty test, this is harmful to our service members. And even though we have pulled back from a special operations focused set of wars and we are now going to a more great power competition where the conventional force is really more important than the special operating forces, they are still a really important aspect of any conventional war. They are the ones who do preparation of the battlefield, who do any kind of unconventional warfare, conflict, and operations short of war, anything like that, where they are helping to do everything what we would call left of bang before a war would start. Intelligence gathering, special reconnaissance, direct action, foreign internal defense, all of these things are really important. And special operators play an outsized role based on their size. They're very small and they can have massive impacts. And the fact that we are just placing somebody in there who doesn't seem to be qualified is problematic. Now, with that being said, I do understand how difficult it is to get into these spaces and to get hired. And sometimes I do wish more people would give a young person a chance. But this is one where it just doesn't seem to be the case. Someone like this, if you really want to be in these spaces, you should be going to graduate school, getting your master's degree in global security or international relations, focusing on irregular warfare. Like, the knowledge that's there it's out there. It's really not that hard. Like, I literally did a Google search to get into my second master's program. I was like, oh, Arizona State has a great program. And so it's one of those things that it's wholly disturbing for me for this to happen. Because, like, the ASD SOLIC is like a dream job for me, like being in that Senate confirmed position where I would have an impact on the brothers and sisters who conduct those special operations. And to me, to see it be something that is just as a holding place for someone because they stormed the Capitol and the president's world is very, very disheartening. Now, I have to apologize. This is an episode where I do try to keep it somewhat less politically biased. I do understand that this is a space where no matter what, my politics will show through. This is one of those where I feel like it was really important for those opinions to come out and about, because I think my opinion should be nonpartisan, because the health and safety of American citizens should always be paramount when we're talking about these issues surrounding national security. And I think that these two decisions are really harmful for that. So I do understand that it's easy to see that I am just hating because these are Trump appointees, but I do believe that my criticisms are valid and they have legitimate reasons, because I don't think that either of these people are qualified to hold the roles that they are holding. And it's time for us to take national security seriously and not try and be just chest thumpers who hold a big gun, because national security is so much more than just the ability to direct soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. It's also international relations. It's also soft power. All of these things are really important. So I beg the administration to take a harder look at national security from a whole of government perspective. I know I'm probably just screaming into the void at this point, but that is my hope. And sorry to end on those kind of dour notes, but that's going to be the end of the show for this week. I hope that you have learned something. As always, if you find value in this, I would love for you to gently caress that like button. Hitting that like button shows that you get some value out of this. It'll show the algorithms that people like you also find value in this. And the more people like these videos, the more that the algorithm of YouTube and Spotify will present it to other people and put it in front of them. And I do believe that these issues are things that people should know about and talk about. Also, go ahead, please subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. The more subscribers you have, the more likely you are to be placed in front of new viewers. So I would be very much grateful if you would do that. Also, if you want to know when new videos come out, go ahead and hit the notification bell. That will let you know exactly when the new videos come out and will give you an alert. If you want to see me in all my other spaces, you can click in the thing below. There is a link to all of my socials, my TED Talk, my Substack, all of those things if you are interested. I really hope there's a lot out there, and I talk about this stuff in different perspectives, different places, and I'm really excited for them. And I really hope that you enjoy these things. I know I enjoy talking about them. I really enjoy it, even though they are somewhat depressing topics, but I really hope that you enjoy these. And I hope that I can see you again at the end of the week.